Yes, please.
So what is the position of astrology in Islam?
Astrology is just one hocus pocus among many other hocus pocuses. Astrology has no meaning, no bearing on human life, in the sense that by looking at stars and taking our cue from them, we plan our affairs here in the world. If that is what you mean by astrology, then no prophet on earth did that. And the most successful people on earth are prophets of God. Astrology was non-existent for them. It was non-existent for Hazrat Masih Maud, and it's non-existent for most of the people living on earth who'd never even hear of astrology and that sort of thing. That is different. That's not astrology. I understand. I'll explain what you want to say. Hazrat Masih Maud has written while commenting on some verses of the Holy Quran, وَالسَّمَاءِ وَمَا بَنَاهَا وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا طَحَاهَا. These are the verses, and some others. وَالسَّمَاءِ وَمَا بَنَاهَا وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا طَحَاهَا وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. These are the verses on which he is commenting. And he says that from this it is clear that even the remotest stars have some part to play in the creation of earth and what lives here. And they have their properties which have influence on whatever happens here. Now this is what he says, and this is correct. The entire universe, like an ecosystem, is interdependent, and the qualities and properties of even the farthest stars reach Earth and have influences here. But those influences are either far too minute for human understanding, or it's far too complex to compute into things. So that is a work for scientists. Like, for instance, now they have discovered that under the influences of big changes in some planets and on Sun and elsewhere, carbon-14, the manufacture of carbon-14 in trees increases visibly and conspicuously, with the result that we can analyzing the wood of trees which exist for a long time, like from the time of Jesus Christ, by counting the number of carbon-14 atoms in the wood of that tree, we can find out when there was influx in the activity of the sun. Now, carbon-14 is an organic matter. If it increases, it has influences on other life, and gradually, from step after step, it begins to influence other things. So what happens in the heart of the sun influences the events here, but not directly. The creation of Jesus Christ has nothing to do with it. Why I said it is because at the time of Jesus Christ, there was observed a very hectic activity in the sun. And as such, carbon-14 increased in proportion in every plantation at that time. This activity was not only at the time of Jesus Christ. It happened at other times. And not at every time there was a prophet of God. it also happened at times when the world and the events there were inconspicuous and immaterial. So because of this happening at one particular time, to conclude that it means that the stars had influences over Jesus Christ's birth, this is all false. Hazrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam has pointedly negated this. He says it is false to say that the birth or death of great people is predicted or has any connection with the movement of heavenly bodies, changes like eclipse, etc. They have nothing to do here with that. So, if astronomy is meant that by studying the stars, you can judge individually the life pattern of a child born under the influence of certain stars, I declare it hocus pocus repeatedly. Because for studying the carbon-14, scientists had to spend their lifetimes and generations of lifetimes to know only that much. And these people who draw certain lines, they know exactly what the influence of that star body or that star combination was on that child born on that day. Can you really believe in these things?
Sorry, but I little to...
Continue then.
No, sir,
I tell you one thing.
Yeah.
You can write, I have no objection. You may believe in whatever you please. But you can't tell anybody, knowing his birth, date of birth and things, what sort of life he will spend. Just a moment. Once somebody from America wrote to me to send him my date of birth and some other questions which were asked, and he said that there was a great astronomer who is also the astronomer of presidents of America and this and that, from San Francisco or somewhere in the West, and he knows that astronomer very well, and he would have him or her, I don't remember it was lady or man, do my horoscope and things. So he sent me a cassette which spoke of me, which made it very clear to me that Ahmadi had spoken in generalities about me. So in generalities he touched upon certain things. In particularities, what was unknown to this man who had asked me was also totally unknown to that astronomer. So what I did was, I said, I want to try some more. I will send her 2 other birth dates and things, and I would like that astronomer to send me 2 other cassettes about these people. So I sent him the date of birth of late Sayyid Mir Dawood Ahmad Sahib, who is my brother-in-law, was my brother-in-law, and late Mirza Khalil Ahmad, my brother, and told him to find out about their future. So that astronomer predicted exactly what will happen to this man in 1978 or 1982, and said that year is a very dangerous year for his life, who had passed away many years before. So I have still kept those cassettes, and that astronomer is supposed to be of the highest quality in the world, and it's all hocus pocus. They just judge things. No, I'm not to convince you, I'm to convince others.
The word belief has slipped from me.
I've already given up.
Opinion. I just wanted to say it's my opinion that I little...
Exactly, I heard your opinion, but after I have expressed my opinion, please. Thank you.
That just slipped from my lips.
All right, thank you very much. Anything else, please? Yes?
Good afternoon. in your khutbah to mention of speaking the truth. Right. In case someone is able to go to Saudi Arabia and then to perform the Hajj, you've not been questioned. Well, your intention, you know your intentions. Is it a crime or not, as you've been forbidden to attend it?
Two? I couldn't follow you, please.
Right. I said in your khutbah.
Yes, I said you shouldn't tell lies.
No.
Right.
Right.
So, for the sake of Hajj, can you tell lies? Is that the question?
No.
No.
While at the moment we've been allowed not to go for Hajj.
Correct.
Right. And if you find your way inside Saudi Arabia and then you perform your Hajj, is it wrong?
This is not a lie.
But,
To perform Hajj is not a lie.
But in this case, to do
It is a defiance of the government's order which is not authorized to issue that order. This is not a lie. The lie would be, sometimes Ahmadis ask me that by making wrong declaration on the visa form, if we can go for Hajj, will that be all right? I said no. It will be a total waste. And it will be a total negation of the purpose of Hajj itself. So you will not only be wasting your money and time, you will be destroying all your good deeds even before that. Hajj and falsehood, I mean, how can they go together? It's impossible. Yes, please.
सवाल यह है कि औरतों को अपने मखसूस अय्याम में मस्जिद में नमाज पढ़ना तो ठीक नहीं है, क्या उनका मस्जिद में आना भी जायज़ है किसी मस्जिद?
The question is that the ladies, when they are passing through their menstruation, they can't come and join people in prayer, in congregation prayer in the mosque, but just to enter mosque that period, during that period, whether it is permissible or not. The question is, why are they not permitted to say prayer in the mosque at that time? The simple reason is that there is always a danger of some less careful ladies dropping blood or something in the mosque, thereby making the mosque unclean for those who prostrate there. Mosque is specially kept clean not only because we remember God, because we remember God in every place, but also because we prostrate here and we touch our forehead repeatedly to the ground, with the ground. So the ground must be kept as clean as possible for hygienic reasons. And if these things are permitted and taken casually, then there is every likelihood and danger that ultimately many careless persons may cause the floor of the mosque to become dirty, and in a sort of filth would be added, which with the process of time decays and becomes stagnant and stinking. So that is, as I understand, the purpose. So mosques should not be frequented by ladies during the period of their menstruation. But we can say prayer everywhere, even in the houses. There this does not apply, because that is something which is unavoidable. So that is why we have prayer cloths for our houses, so that if there is some place which is unclean, to put the prayer cloth and then it's all right. But at the same time, let me tell you that all matters of jurisprudence and edict should be referred to Mufti of Silsila and should not be asked casually in such meetings like this question and answer session. because sometimes the jurisprudence matters have to be referred to the specialist, and offhand one may not think of the correct answer. And because Khalifa is the final authority, so I take very special care not to give an opinion offhand, lest later on some other things are brought to my notice and I have to change that opinion. So remember this, that these sessions are not for questions belonging to jurisprudence. The proper procedure is that such questions should be referred to the Mufti-e-Silsila, who is a specialist on this, and if he answers in a manner that it does not satisfy the questioner, then the questioner refers that answer to me or to the Khalifa, whoever it is. And then he refers that question to a board of ulama which form the ifta body, the body of edicts, issuance of edicts or jurisprudence, is a regular body which includes lawyers, even some scientists, professors, and a large number of religious scholars. So the procedure is that they contemplate it, and sometimes they take months, and in some cases even more than a year. I have been a member of that body, so I know how painstakingly we went into details of every such question which was referred to us. And we made thorough investigations, reading so many books of the past, Hazrat Masih Maud writings on that subject, previous Khulafa's writings on that subject, and so on and so forth. And then an opinion was formed, which was submitted to the Khalifa for his final approval. Then it became an edict in itself. So this is the proper procedure. In future, try to avoid such questions as belong to jurisprudence and follow the procedure which I have already laid out before you. Yes, please.
My question is, who was the first man Almighty Allah created?
That first man was created in such a remote past that even the scientists who have investigated this issue have not been able to pinpoint exactly who was the first man and whether it was a man or not a man. So the latest discovery so far is that it was not a man, it was a woman. You see? And that woman happened to belong to that part of the world which is your country, Africa. Which part of Africa are you from? So it was not the West Africa, according to them so far, but East Africa, where the first woman ancestor of human beings was born. But it is still controversial, and some scientists want to drag that person back to Europe and say that it was Europe that was the seat of first human being. But the scientific evidence in favor of that woman is very strong. I have read that, and I believe it is very likely that that is correct, unless of course some new evidence is unearthed. So God does not go into such detail about creation. What God tells us is this, that the first man who was worthy of receiving revelation was Adam. So as far as religious people are concerned, we should be fed with information which is relevant to religion. And that much has been explained in the Holy Quran. That the first man who was capable of receiving revelation from God, and that again is conditioned. The first man of this series of religions on which Islam is born. was that Adam which is known to be the common ancestor of Judaism, Christianity and Islam. Regarding other prophets of God, there is a revelation, there is a tradition of Ahmad sallallahu alaihi wasallam which speaks of many such Adams. In Futuhat Makkiyah, a very deep scholarly book of immense value written by Hazrat Ibn Arabi, who was one of the greatest thinkers of the entire Islamic world, and a very holy man for that matter too. Not only a thinker, but a very holy man and a very deep philosopher. He writes about this. He says that once I saw in a vision that I was making circuits around Khana Kaaba, and I saw some creatures who looked like aliens, who did not seem to belong to human race, also doing circuits around Khana Kaaba. So they were singing some Arabic verses which meant now you are making circuits kama tufna, like we used to do it long ago. So Hazrat Ibn Arabi in that kashf, that in vision, asked him, what do you mean by long ago? Are you talking of Adam's time? That Adam also used to make circuits of Khana Kaaba? In response, he said, what do you mean by Adam? Which Adam are you talking about? Your Adam is different, my Adam was different, we refer to a different Adam. So Hazrat Ibn Arabi asked him, when was your Adam born? He said, 40,000 years ago. So your Adam is a small child as compared to our Adam. So Ibn Arabi writes that reminded me of a tradition of Ahmad sallallahu alaihi wasallam which speaks that 100,000 Adams were created in this world. So that does not mean that we should start working backward from this known Adam of 6,000 years ago and calculate it to be beyond, many millions of years. It is very possible, even probable, that not only one Adam, but many Adams were created simultaneously in different parts of the world. Because it is not possible for the man of that time to be in communication with other parts of the world. So either we have to believe that one Adam was created and the rest of the world was left to total ignorance and darkness, or if there is a caring God, we have to believe that for them other Adams were created. Why this Adam was specifically mentioned in the Quran is simply because on the tree which began from him was to be created that final fruit which was the best of the prophets. So this was the tree whose record had to be kept. The other trees which came to earlier ends and were not to continue forever, they were left behind in history, like biological history of evolution tells us that some trees came to an end here, some came to an end there, and one tree which is still not yet fully traced by scientists is that which bore the fruit of man. So all the scientists which are interested in which they are really interested in is to find ancestry of mankind and trace it back to the earliest stages. But that is not the whole story. There are hundreds of thousands of other species which are not in direct line of this, but which had separate simultaneous lines and which ended up here or there, or ended up in a completely different type of creation. So that is my understanding of this tradition of creation of many Adams. I believe that religious phenomenon started much earlier, in fact, and also very widely spread. It was very widely spread. Now again I remind you of the Aborigines of Australia. Aborigines of Australia have a civilization of 40,000 years ago. So is it just a coincidence or an accident that Hazrat Ibn Arabi was shown in that dream that the person who met him said our Adam was created 40,000 years ago? And we know one species of, one type of human beings positively about whom scientists have established this fact that their civilization is 40,000 years old, and who speak also of revelation of God, but not revelation, verbal revelation like we know, but an earlier type of revelation, that is dream. And through dreams they still believe God speaks to man and delivers his messages. So when I went to Australia, I investigated into all this. So it all ultimately connects the whole story. And that is why I am more convinced than ever before that one Adam was not all the story about the creation of man or creation of religion. There were so many innumerable Adams born at different ages, in different countries, at different times. And the central message was the same, of course, that I am God, worship me, and be nice to human beings. But the details, of course, varied. Yes.
There's also some witness according to how just talk of Adam.
Pardon?
So there's something which beats my imagination now about Adam. Right, now we know, or now I know that that there were many Adams before the Adam I know.
Yes.
Right, so and the Adam I know has 2 children.
How do you know?
What? According to what I've read, Cain and then Abel.
No, but there may be others.
There may be
Only
others.
you have read about these 2 because they quarreled with each other.
Yeah.
And the sacrifice of one was accepted by God and the other was rejected, and one killed the other one. So ultimately there was one left, who was the villain. You see, that is the problem.
Right. And according
Are we all the offsprings of a villain?
Right, and according to the story too, the disobedient one for his punishment,
Fine?
for the punishment of the disobedience,
Yes?
his offspring were made black.
No, nobody says that. It's all somebody is just feeding you with all this rubbish and you are accepting it without raising your eyebrows. I'm surprised. It's all false. Moreover, as I have already told you, the blacks were born much earlier than other species of human beings. And the scientists believe that it was a black mother who gave birth to the entire humanity. So we should be proud of that. Okay?
In this case,
Very interesting. Yes, please.
In this case, they should make it known so that people will be surprised about the birth of Jesus Christ.
About what?
About the birth.
Birth of Jesus Christ?
Jesus Christ, yes. If it was a woman who was originally, who just first came to the world, or God created a woman for the first time on earth.
No, but she was not a virgin. That woman was not a virgin. that woman had developed enough humanoid features with the result that she can be described as the first Homo sapien.
Now you mean Lucy?
No.
Skeleton Lucy.
Is it Lucy? Lucy, I think, is a different skeleton. Could be, I don't remember exactly, but I remember that if Lucy was born or her bones were discovered somewhere in Kenya or other East African countries thereabout, then perhaps you are talking of the same person.
Olduvai.
Pardon?
Olduvai.
Where is that?
Tanzania.
Tanzania. So could be Lucy. Could as well be. Because Lucy, I remember, is one of the oldest bodies discovered, but whether it is the Lucy which gave rise to this controversy, or was it some other discovery, I am not sure of that. Yes, please.
And if, as it has been explained, that the scientists are saying they've discovered that the first person who was created may be a woman and she was black, how do it came for us to get the black and the white?
This is exactly what has been spoken of in the Holy Quran. You see, I'll explain two things to you in this connection. Number one, isn't it surprising that the first verse, which is recited at the nikah ceremony of every Muslim, speaks of a female giving birth to other creation, not of a male. It says, Ya ayyuhan nasu taqu rabbakum allazi khalaqakum min nafsin wahidatin wa khalaqa minha zawjaha. It's a very crucial and very fundamental verse which should never be forgotten by Muslims. Quite contrary to the Bible, it says it was a female from which we created her spouse, and not that a male, it was a male from whom we created his spouse. So those Christian scholars who believe or who, propagate that the Rasulullah Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam copied from Bible are given a lie with this one single verse among other things. No man on earth at that time could ever have believed that the first person who was live, I'm talking of human beings, I'm talking of persons, and I'll clarify why, was a female. Because the Holy Quran says that the first person from whom we have created you was a female, then from that female ultimately we created her spouse, and then both of them multiplied until men and women were born. This speaks of a much longer history than the history of humanity. This verse speaks, in my opinion, of asexual birth preceding sexual birth. It says that we created you from something, a type of life, which was not yet divided into male and female. And because it was not yet divided, so it was referred to as mother. Because without coming into union with a male, it gave birth. So in scientific terms, I would call it asexual birth, asexual process of proliferation. Then Allah tells us that from her we created a spouse, and then sexual reproduction began. And from that sexual reproduction were born men and women. So which means that before the creation of man, male and female had already been involved in the reproduction process. So there is no question of the first person among humanoids being a woman or a man, because both were offsprings of some species which was already divided into male and female. So in the light of this, read this verse again and you will be surprised that for the last 1400 years people have been reciting it, yet not fathoming the underlying meaning. Ya ayyuhan nasu ttaqu rabbakum alladhi khalaqakum min nafsin wahidatin. O human beings, and it doesn't address mu'mineen, believers only. This is again the beauty of this verse, because it refers to a wider phenomenon of reproduction. So it doesn't speak of mu'mineen or believers. It says, O human beings, bring to mind that we created you from single person. And from that single person, we created ultimately a spouse. وَخَلَقَ مِنْهَا زَوْجَهَا وَبَثَّ مِنْهُمَا. And from these two participants, بَثَّ مِنْهُمَا رِجَالًا كَثِيرًا وَنِسَاءً, we ultimately spread the race of human beings, both male and females, in large numbers. So in nutshell, it contains the entire history of reproduction of life itself, not only of human beings. See?
Quite understood.
Yes, please.
There is a professor from Leiden University, he gave his speech that the Quran is very tolerant, but still it discriminates on two points. One, in the case of testament, the woman, and inheritance question.
I have already spoken on this. The first is wrong, because he is following the medieval Muslim scholars and believes in whatever they tell him. While, as I have repeatedly proved, the Holy Quran does not differentiate and discriminate between the male witness and female witness. It's not possible. So, it's a long argument. I don't want to go into that here, but I have already spoken on it repeatedly, and also I think one of the articles has been published previously, the reasons why we believe in that. And as far as the second point is concerned, what was that? Inheritance. You see, number one, it should be understood, although I have spoken amply on this subject as well, but for your benefit I will only repeat in gist. It should be well understood that Islam is the only religion in the world which speaks of female inheritance. Neither Judaism, nor Christianity, nor Hinduism, nor any other religion for that matter, establishes the right of a female to inherit the property of her parents or her next of kin or brothers, etc. So that is where Islam is distinct and stands out. So instead of blaming Islam, they should be praising Islam. And I have been speaking on this subject, and during my jalsas, which is among ladies, and once even the Britishers were surprised to find that until recently, during the last 2 decades, even according to the British law, the British women could not inherit. So it's just a recent change in the British law which makes the British women not only inherit, they could not own anything. They could not have any property. So as far as religions are concerned, Islam is the most beneficent and understanding religion and speaks of equality. Now the question is why women are given half and men are given twice as much. The answer is very simple. Because men are made responsible for running the wheel of economy in homes, for maintaining the houses. Women are not obliged to do that. According to Islam, it is man who is responsible for looking after his home, for providing all the needs and requirements of his wife and his children. And wife is free to do whatever she pleases with her money. So it is not cruelty at all that men are given twice as much of the share. Logic would have us perhaps more would also be needed. But God showed special kindness to ladies and gave them half of the inheritance of their brothers with no responsibilities like the responsibilities placed on male members. You follow this?
In Holland it dates from 1958.
Is that right?
Before that time the wife was not allowed to have her own capital.
Yes, yes. In 58. In England it happened later on. As far as I remember, it was in 60s, early 60s, that the law was passed about the wife having her own property. And previously she could not own anything. They close their eyes to these customs and things in the civilized world and always find fault with Islam, where the fault doesn't lie. Yes, please.
Before the advent of Islam, the Arabs were circumcising the women.
Yes.
And when Islam came, it disappeared.
Yes.
And the United Nations today is estimating that 70 million women in Africa are being circumcised. So why the Ahmadiyya Jamaat, being the Renaissance of Islam, is not taking a strong stand against this?
We are taking very strong stance against that. You see, only recently I was told of a quarrel in a chiefdom where an Ahmadi stood up and said to the chief, "This may be your custom, my religion does not permit me, and I am not going to participate in such nonsense." And no Ahmadi would do that. So there was a big row, and ultimately the chief bowed down. And it was decided that all Ahmadis would be exempt from this. It happened only recently. And not only this, but in so many other areas of ignorance, Ahmadis are picking up great fight against the dark African customs. For instance, when a chief dies, even now, it's not a matter of the past, he is beheaded after death. And his head is kept to be put onto the body of the next chief, whose head will also be beheaded after death. So what happens is the heads are swapped. That if somebody dies today, his head is severed and it is kept preserved. And in his head's place, the head of the previous chief, which is preserved, is put on to his body. But that is not all. What happens is that large number of innocent people are murdered before the burial of this chief, and their heads are also severed and they are buried along with the chief. The bigger the chief, the larger number of heads would roll down. It also happened in Kumasi, you see. I had heard of that, I couldn't believe it. But when I visited Kumasi this time, I asked Khuddam, "Isn't it right?" He said, "Of course it is right." And they told me a very interesting story. He said, Ahmadis are very cautious. So when the last chief was approaching his death, they kept it secret because otherwise people would run away from the town, all of them. So They kept it very secret, but somehow the news got around and they sent the Ahmadi missionary away. He said, please leave the town, it's no safe place for you. Then the Khuddam organized a body to protect people from these bands of the chief's tribe. And surprisingly, while they were roaming the streets, voluntarily, suddenly someone jumped from the bush to attack one of the Khuddam, and they caught him, overpowered him, and he happened to be an Ahmadi Khadim. And they was astounded. He said, what do you mean, you? He said, I didn't know you were Ahmadi. He said, what do you mean by not Ahmadis? You were human beings. You also joined this? He said, I didn't know that. I thought it was all right. So these customs prevail. But as far as this circumcision of ladies, it's a very cruel and very ugly tradition against which I know Ahmadis have rebelled. And again, it is not found everywhere in Africa. Wherever there is Islamic influence, this custom is already being rooted out. In the Christian areas, it is more present than in Muslim areas. So once I remember one English lady asked me this question and said, it is a very bohemian Islamic tradition. I said, what do you mean by Islamic? It is not Islamic at all. Islam did away with it. It was an old Arab tradition which may have come from Africa in those days. And even today in Africa, among Christian or pagan Africa, this tradition is common. Yes, please.
I want to ask that in Islam give a permission that a father can be married with his son's sister-in-law.
Pardon?
A father can be married with his son's sister-in-law. With his son's sister-in-law.
The father can be married with
his son's sister-in-law.
His son's sister-in-law. Yes?
That's possible.
Yes, it is possible. But it's not advised. I mean, don't start looking for sons, sisters-in-law. That's all I ask. And don't publish my answer in any newspaper, please. Yes, please.
For how long can one remember a loved deceased one in prayers?
For how long?
Yes, please.
As long as you can. Of course, it's a very good thing to remember your dead relations or friends as well, and to remember them in prayer as long as you live. It's a very good habit, and the best way to repay them their kindness. कौन?
कुरान के एक वर्ष मुझे नहीं समझ आती है।
क्या समझाइए, बताइए।
Prophet Moses caught Harun's hair and dragged him. Why before analyzing the situation and knowing the thing beforehand?
आप खुदा ने जो कहा है कि उन्होंने ये कहा कि मुझे मेरी दाढ़ी से ना पकड़ो, कहीं ये भी कहा है कि हज़रत मूसा ने पकड़ा हुआ था दाढ़ी से? नहीं, लोग नहीं कहते, मैं आपसे पूछ रहा हूँ। नहीं ना कहा, ये क्या वजह है? कहना ये चाहिए था खुदा को कि हज़रत मूसा ने जाते ही दाढ़ी पकड़ ली। उसकी बजाय अल्लाह ताला ये कहता है कि हारून ने कहा कि मुझे मेरी दाढ़ी से ना पकड़ो। Hazrat Muslim Maud, please sit down. He says one verse of the Holy Quran I cannot understand properly, cannot digest this is what it means. That Moses, when he returned from his audience with God and found that idolatry had again spread, while Aaron was appointed as a deputy behind him. Under his presence, idolatry had yet got rooted once again. From then on, he says, Moses got him by the beard and dragged him and insulted him. And this, he says, I can't understand. Being a prophet of God, he should have more patience, he should have inquired, and then he should have caught him by the beard. But I told him, haven't you noticed one thing? And it's a strange thing to note that the Holy Quran never says that Moses went and did that. The Holy Quran says that when Moses expressed his anger at what had happened, Aaron begged him that he should not hold him by the beard. So Hazrat Muslim Maud has very wisely commented on this and said that this is a figure of speech. Moses did not hold him by the beard. All the Holy Quran says is that Moses expressed his indignation in strongest terms. What has happened? Only 40 days absence has brought you to this stupid end. And then Aaron said, don't hold me by the beard, which meant don't bring me bad name, don't involve me in this. With such strong condemnation, the impression created on the people would be that I was also a party to it. He said, I was not a party to it. So please don't drag me into it. This is a figure of speech. If it had actually happened, then God should have said that Moses went straight, made a beeline for Aaron and got him by the beard and dragged him, and then he said, please forgive me.
That is spoken by the other sects of Muslims.
Of course it is. All the mullahs say of this, but they build the story without knowing, without realizing that God has never said it. कब से? क्या आपकी दाढ़ी नहीं इसलिए? कोई ड्रैग नहीं कर सकता?
एस्ट्रोलॉजी के मसले पे।
अच्छा अभी वही है आप? We have traveled the whole world round, went to Adam and beyond, went to the creation of mankind and returned, and you're still sticking on astrology.
मसला ये है कि मैं बहुत ज़्यादा इंटरेस्टेड हूँ और मैंने बहुत सारी किताबें इकट्ठी की हुई।
ओह, तो चाय बनाए उससे?
उसमें हजरत मोहिउद्दीन इब्न अरबी साहब का हवाला भी है। वो उन्होंने फ्रांस वालों ने किताब शायद की अंग्रेजी में, उनको तर्जुमा करके उधर से वो
आप साकी साहब हारोस्कोप बना के पहले बताएं क्या हुआ इनके साथ।
नहीं, मैं पर्सनल बात नहीं कर रहा, उसमें
मैं पर्सनल कर रहा हूँ। बना दे ना ये, जो इतना इल्म हासिल किया आपने, तो साकी साहब हारोस्कोप बना के मुझे बताएं क्या है।
नहीं, असल में वही बात कर रहा हूँ कि जाती मामलों पे मैं एस्ट्रोलॉजी की बात नहीं कर, वो क्या जाती फला आदमी का क्या होगा। मैं सिर्फ गैस कर रहा था कि उसमें वो जो मतलब फिजिक्स के हवाले से, केमिस्ट्री के हवाले से उसमें बहुत सारी चीज़ें लिखी हुई हैं। मतलब रेस का आपस में मिलना, जिस तरह उनका इफेक्ट जो है एस्ट्रोनॉमी के हवाले से, मैं क्या करूँ, बहुत सारी
If you find it difficult to express, please don't. You're not obliged to express when you can't.
नहीं, तो वो बहुत सारे मसाइल उसमें मतलब फिजिक्स और केमिस्ट्री के हवाले से उनकी कम्बिनेशन है, उसी तरह रेस के आपस में कम्बिनेशन है।
Why don't the scientists know these things?
Because these are written by scientists.
No. They're not written by scientists. Name one scientist who says that this rays combination creates influences on the birth of every child, so that from that then you can read on his future. Quote one single scientist.
So physics.
You see, you should have taken my advice before you spent so much money on this trash, buying these books. Now you have already bought or invested on this, what can I do about it? Okay? No, but what is ailing you? Still you are very uncertain on things.
इसलिए हजूर कि वो जैसे H2O सर हजूर को 2 हाइड्रोजन के एटम मिल गया, एक आप जानते हैं वो पानी बन गया, इसी तरह मैं इसे समझने की कोशिश कर रहा था पूरी अब तक पढ़ते हुए एस्ट्रोलॉजी के हवाले से कि निज़ाम आलम काम कैसे करता है।
अच्छा,
मुझे ये वो जो राशिद पे आया था कि खुदा की मर्जी के बगैर पता भी नहीं करता, और जैसे उन्होंने फरमाया कि मतलब ये मुख्तलिफ प्लैनेट्स जो हैं फरिश्तों का काम आयनक मिलाते हैं इस्लाम के हवाले से, ये सारी चीज़ें मिला के अपने जहन में एक जो है वो वर्किंग सिस्टम जो है उसको समझने की कोशिश कर रहा था। तो अब वो एकदम सारी इमारत जो है वो धड़ाम से गिर रहा है।
आप बीच में से निकल जाए। He built a huge edifice out of this and that. He collected material from here and there and that, and a huge building. And now you have just making a few statements, you have entirely demolished the whole building. I said, please get out of that building immediately before it falls on you. Yes, please. Last question now.
It's the belief of the Ahmadiyya movement that Almighty Allah reveals prophets at any time to the day of judgment.
Huh?
That Almighty Allah never breaks revealing prophets if it needs.
Never
breaks the sending prophets.
Sending prophets if the needs arise. That, because we say
I understand, yes, I understand, yes.
And I've heard this, I haven't read it myself, that if the Mahdi appears, the Khilafat will continue to the day of judgment. Is it true first? And it's in what book so that I can know and agree on that if such a question is.
You see, as far as the continuity of prophethood is concerned, it should be understood in two ways. Number one, just the logical possibility, and the second, actually what may happen. The Ahmadiyya position is that logically it can never come to an end, and the logical possibility continues. Regarding the second part, whether it will happen many times or once or twice, on that the best Ahmadiyya position was the one taken by my predecessor, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Salis, before the National Assembly of Pakistan. This question was raised. He said it is not enough for one to believe in the possibility, because a possibility may occur which may never realize. But the question is how many times that possibility will be realized. On that we must refer to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because of all the people he is the one person whom God must have informed of important events of his time, which time is up to the day of judgment, up to the day of resurrection, or doomsday, let's say. So this was the most beautiful logic which he developed, and he said that under that possibility, Mahdi and Masih were to come, and we have specific mention of both Mahdi and Masih in his regulations. So the possibility still continues, but if somebody speaks of realization of that possibility, he must find out evidence from hadith, from the word of Holy Prophet, that because it was his age, because a subordinate was to be born to him, he must have been informed by God. Where was he informed? Other than the information we know about the Mahdi and the Masih. So if there is no such information to our knowledge, so up to date, then why should we bother about the realization in future? Suppose someone does come, the onus of proof will be on his shoulders. he will have to prove from some traditions which will be revealed to him from God that this is where you are mentioned. And if he speaks on the authority of the word of the Holy Prophet, then all the sane people of his time must accept. But so far, to our knowledge, there is no such tradition which speaks of anyone coming from God as a prophet, subordinate prophet, after Masih and after the Mahdi. And that has been fulfilled already.
I wanted to know if was it in a hadith, and if it will be remembered and quoted to me.
Yes, that is in hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said that after me there will be one generation of light, then another nation, then another generation. Then darkness would set for a long time, until the time that God would send Masih Maud. ثم تكون خلافة على منهاج النبوة. From then on, Khilafat on the style, on the pattern, what is left by Nabuwa, will continue, will rehabilitate. So this ثم تكون خلافة على منهاج النبوة are the words of the tradition of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. You understand? This is what you wanted.
Yeah.
Now, in other traditions where he speaks of Hazrat, the advent of Masih Maud or Mahdi Maud, he says that for a long time then, good wind will start to blow. When Mahdi and Masih will become victorious, then mankind will be ushered into an era where there would be peace and good winds would blow. Good wind is the expression used there. Then gradually the winds would change to bad winds. Then bad winds would overpower everything else, until on the face of earth there will be such people who will be completely rotten and totally immoral. There will be no ray of hope left then. Then he says that on such people, doomsday would appear. That would be the end all. So between Masih Maud and Mahdi Maud, he speaks of all these changes, but does not mention another subordinate prophet. Why not? He is the one whose age it is. In relative terms, it is the age of Masih Maud, but it is not his age. It is in fact the age of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa ﷺ, because he is the last prophet in this sense, the last lawbearer, last word on everything. So real age is that of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. It is not possible for us to conceive that a huge, big event like the coming of a prophet was kept secret from him, which was to happen in his age. Dajjal is mentioned, Yajuj Majuj are mentioned, Masih Maud is mentioned, Mahdi Maud are mentioned, but no other afterward. Why not? This is the question. You understand this?
Yeah,
Good.
it's quite understood.
Yes, thank you. So I think we call it a day now, I hope. It's already close upon 12. And because Khuddam must be very tired today and they have to get up early tomorrow, some of them at least. So we better part now, right?